Come closer, my children. Closer. Let my old eyes see your faces clearly. The night is long, and what I'm about to tell you should not be heard from far away. You must sit near me, where the warmth of the lamp touches us all. Yes, that's better. Now listen, carefully, patiently, without interrupting. Because this story is older than your father, older than his father, older even than the soil beneath our feet. You ask me why no one goes near that abandoned house at the edge of the fields? Why even grown men, who shout so loudly during the day, walk faster and lower their eyes when they pass it at night? I will tell you. I have carried this story inside me for many decades, and perhaps the time has come for you to hear it. I was not much older than you when it happened. My feet were small, my braids were long, and my world was little more than the path from home to the well. Back then the village was different. Fewer houses, more open land, and a silence that felt deeper. In that silence, that house stood like a wound. Its roof leaned as though it were tired. Its walls were dark, as if burnt by sun and sorrow. Even the sparrows refused to sit on it, and whenever the wind passed by, the wood of that house would creak. Slowly, like something inside it was shifting, stretching, waking. The elders warned us never to wander near it after sunset. But children are foolish. We think the world cannot touch us. One evening, Mira and I were returning from the well. The sun had almost gone, the sky turning a muddy red. She nudged me and said, "Let's go closer to the house, just to see. Everyone lies. Maybe it's not haunted at all." And I wanted to prove I was brave. I wanted to be fearless, even though my heart was already thumping. So we walked toward it. Even from far away, I felt something strange. The air grew colder. Odd, because it was a warm evening. But that familiar warmth was nowhere near the house. It was as if that place did not belong to the world around it. The shadows near it were darker, thicker, as though they didn't want to move. I remember whispering, "Mira, maybe we shouldn't." But she laughed. Oh, she had the loudest laugh. But even her laugh sounded quiet there, as if the house swallowed sound. We stepped closer, 10 steps away, then 5, then 3. And that's when we heard it, a sound. Soft, dragging, as though someone was walking inside. Mira stopped. She grabbed my hand, nails digging into my skin. "There's someone inside," she whispered. But it wasn't the sound of footsteps. No, children, no. It was more like something heavy being pulled across the floor. A long, slow drag. Pause. Then another drag. We should have run. Oh, how I wish we had. But we stood frozen. A faint light flickered inside. Not candlelight, not fire, not anything I recognized. It was pale, bluish, trembling like it didn't belong to this world. It passed across the window for a moment, and in that moment, I saw something move. Something tall. Too tall. Something thin. Too thin, and it didn't walk. It glided, as if its feet didn't touch the ground. Mira gasped. I slapped my hand over her mouth. But it was too late. The thing turned. Not with a face, not with eyes, because I don't think it had either. But it knew we were there. I felt it. A coldness crawled up my spine, wrapped around my neck like fingers made of ice. Then the house groaned. Not a normal creak, No. A deep sound, as though the walls were breathing in. As though the house itself had woken up and was hungry. We ran. We ran so fast that my braid opened and my slippers flew off. I didn't stop until I reached home. Even then my chest hurt, my throat felt raw, and I could not speak a word. For days, I could not sleep. Every night, I dreamt of that pale blue light drifting across the window. Every night I heard that dragging sound. Weeks passed. People whispered. They said the light had been seen before. That some nights, it wandered from window to window, like a lonely soul. One old man claimed he heard crying inside. A woman swore she saw someone waving from the top floor. Children talked of shadows that didn't match the shape of the house, but no one went near it. Except one person. Old Mahesh. Do you remember him? The man who used to fix pots? He lived alone. He drank too much. One night he bragged that he wasn't afraid of anything and would sleep in the abandoned house for a bag of coins. People warned him. They begged him not to. But pride. Pride is a loud, blind thing. He entered at sunset. He never came out. In the morning, the villagers gathered. They called his name. No answer. They pushed the broken door open and stepped inside. He wasn't there. Not even his clothes. Not even his tools. The house was empty. Too empty. Dust on the floor had no footprints. Not even his. The corners were colder than death. And the smell. They said there was a smell like wet earth mixed with old iron. They searched every room. Nothing. But on the wall, drawn with something dark, were scratch marks. Deep lines, like someone without fingernails, had clawed and clawed and clawed until whatever made the marks could no longer claw. After that day, no one dared go near it. The elders told us children to never speak of it again. And I didn't. For years I kept this inside me, locked like a secret between my ribs. But the story didn't end there. No, it grew. Sometimes at night, people passing by said the house made sounds. Soft knocking, slow scraping, a whisper so faint it blended with the wind. They said if you stood close enough, you could hear breathing. Not human breathing. Too slow, too deep, too old. Then one night, years later, I heard it myself. I was coming back from visiting my sister. It was late, very late. The moon was thin and weak, barely lighting the path. I walked fast, keeping my shawl wrapped tight around me. When I reached the edge of the field, I felt it again. That coldness. The kind that squeezes your bones. I tried not to look at the house. But my eyes, my foolish eyes, they moved on their own. And the window, the same window from my childhood, glowed with a faint blue light again. A shape passed by. Not walking, floating. Then it whispered my name. My name. Not loudly, not angrily. Softly, like an old friend calling me home. I froze. My feet refused to move. My throat dried. For a moment, I felt myself being pulled toward it. Like the house wanted me. Like the voice wanted me. But then, thank God, a lantern shone behind me. A farmer returning late saw me standing still and called out, "Bihenji, what are you doing here at this hour?" The pole broke. I ran to him. He walked me home. I did not dare look back. Since that night, I never passed that place after sunset. Not even once. And now, you ask me why the house is abandoned? Why even today, no one repairs it, No one sells it. No one tears it down. Because children, some places do not belong to the living. Some houses are not empty. Some walls remember. Some windows watch. And that house, that abandoned house at the edge of the fields, it is waiting. For whom? I do not know. Maybe for the next foolish soul who steps too close. Maybe for the next voice it can call. Maybe for someone who hears it whisper their name in the dark. Now sit closer. The night feels colder after old stories. Let me pour you some warm milk. And whatever you do, children, never walk near that house after sunset. Never. Ah, you want me to continue? You children don't know when to stop digging into shadows. Very well. Bring that blanket closer. These old bones feel the chill of memory. Where was I? Ah, yes. The night it whispered my name. You might think the story ends there, but no. Children. The house did not forget me. That night was only the beginning of what followed. You see, some places, once they touch you, they cling. Like cobwebs you try to brush away but still feel on your skin. For days after that night, I felt uneasy. Small things began happening. At first, I ignored them. But you cannot ignore something that knows how to follow you, silently. The first thing was the smell. Every morning before sunrise, I would smell damp earth inside my room. Not like the smell after rain. This was different. Heavier. Like the scent of wet wood that has not seen sunlight in years. I would wake up coughing from it. No one else smelled it. Your great-grandmother used to say, "It's just your imagination." But children, the imagination does not leave footprints. Because one morning, I saw them. Tiny marks on the floor near my window. Thin lines, dragging patterns, as though someone with long fingers had traced circles on the wooden planks while I slept. I cleaned them. The next day, they came back. I told no one. Who would believe me? A young girl talking about invisible hands drawing on her floor? They would say I was dreaming. Then came the knocking. Always at the same hour, just before dawn. 3 slow knocks. Not on the door, not on the wall, on the window. Tap, tap, tap. Soft, measured, patient. I would pull my blanket over my head and pray until the sun finally touched the sky. The moment daylight came, the knock stopped, as though whatever stood on the other side hated the morning. One night I gathered courage and peeked through the window when the knock came. What I saw. Children. Even now my heart trembles to recall it. It wasn't a person. No face, no features. Just a tall shadow standing still. Too still. It had long arms, longer than any human should, and they hung like ropes at its sides. The only color on it was that faint blue glow inside its chest, pulsing like a weak heartbeat. I screamed. Your great-grandfather rushed into the room, but when he lit the lantern, the shadow was gone. Only the smell of damp wood remained. He scolded me, told me ghosts were nonsense, told me my imagination was too wild. But that night, he slept with his back against my door, holding a stick. He didn't say it aloud, but I know he felt something too. After that, the house began appearing in my dreams. Not the way it looked from outside. No, I dreamt of the inside. As if the house wanted to show me what lay behind its walls. I saw long corridors with no end. Doors that opened into darkness. Stairs that led downward into earth. Deeper and deeper. Past rooms filled with old whispers. And the dragging sound. Always the dragging sound. Some nights I saw a woman standing in a corner of one of those rooms. Her back turned to me. Long hair, tangled and wet. She never moved, never spoke. But the moment I tried to step closer, I would wake up choking on cold air, my heart racing. I told Mira about the dreams. She grew pale. "You must never speak of such things," she warned. "You should go to the temple." So she took me there. We lit incense. We prayed. And for a while, a very short while, the dream stopped. I thought it was over. Foolish child that I was. The house doesn't stop just because you ignore it. It waits. One afternoon, years later, I heard people shouting. I stepped outside. A group of men were gathered near the fields, pointing toward the abandoned house. They had seen something. Something moving near the upper window. Some swore they saw a hand. Some swore they saw a face with no eyes. One man claimed he heard a whispered voice calling someone's name. But he couldn't understand which name. The village grew restless. The elders met and decided no one would go near the house anymore. They said, "The place is cursed. Something was left unfinished there. Something wants company." One elder, old Abdul Baba, told me something I never forgot. He said, "Child, the house chooses who it wants. If it whispered your name once, it might call again. If you hear it calling, do not answer. Do not turn. Do not listen." I nodded, pretending to be brave. But inside I was terrified because I knew something he did not know. The house had already called me more than once. It called me almost every night. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the wind, sometimes in the cracks of silence. But I kept quiet. Fear is easier to carry alone than to share and be called mad. Years passed. I grew older. I married. I moved away for several years. And for a time, I thought I had escaped it. But children, you never truly escape what has learned your name. When I returned to the village after having your mother, it began again. The very first night, I had just put your mother to sleep. The moon was bright, and I opened the window for fresh air. I stood there, breathing, thinking of all the years that had passed. Then I felt it, that same coldness, the same weight on my spine, the same whisper of damp wood. I froze. Slowly, very slowly, I looked toward the fields. The house was there, half hidden by the darkness. And at the window, a blue glow. Pulsing, breathing, waiting. I shut the window so fast that the latch broke. Your grandfather asked, "What happened?" But I could not speak. For the next several nights I refused to go near the window. I kept the curtains drawn. I kept the doors locked. I kept lamp flames lit until sunrise. Still, I felt it, watching. And then one night, the worst night of all, your mother woke up crying. Not softly. Not like a child disturbed by a bad dream. No. She cried as if something terrified her. When I held her, she pointed toward the door. I whispered, "What is it, my John?" Her lips trembled. She said only one word. "Shadow." My blood froze. I clutched her close and did not sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I placed a charm around her neck, and until she grew older, I never let her near the fields after sunset. I thought the house might finally forget me. I was wrong, because something like that does not forget. It waits for the right moment. It waits for silence. It waits for darkness. It waits for your footsteps. You're still listening. Your eyes are wide like lantern flames. Don't worry, children. If it becomes too frightening, you can hold each other's hands. Fear shared becomes lighter. Sometimes. Let me continue. After your mother's incident, I became even more cautious. I never walked near the fields alone. I avoided looking toward that direction after sunset. Even in daylight, if I accidentally glanced at the old house, I felt a tightening in my chest, like invisible fingers pressing against my ribs. And then something strange began happening. People in the village started hearing things. Some heard footsteps outside their homes when no one was there. Some claimed shadows passed by their windows at night, even though the moon was full and the fields were empty. A few even swore they heard someone softly calling their names from far away. Too far for any living voice, yet too close for comfort. One woman said she saw a figure standing at the well. She described it as tall, thin, and glowing, faintly blue. When she called out, thinking it was a neighbor, the figure turned toward her. But it had no face. The villagers grew scared. They whispered among themselves, blamed the old house, blamed the past, blamed the spirits that never found rest. They said the house was waking up again, remembering, searching. But I stayed silent. I knew what they feared. I had feared it long before them. One evening, after a long, hot day, there was a storm coming. I could feel it in the wind. Heavy clouds gathered in the sky like dark thoughts crowding the mind. I told everyone to come inside early and close the windows. You know storms in our village. Wild winds, lightning dancing across the fields, thunder that feels like the earth is cracking open. But that night, the storm was different. It felt angry, almost alive. I would pull my blanket over my head and pray until the sun finally touched the sky. The moment daylight came, the knock stopped, as though whatever stood on the other side hated the morning. One night, I gathered courage and peeked through the window when the knock came. What I saw? Children. Even now my heart trembles to recall it. It wasn't a person. No face, no features. Just a tall shadow standing still. Too still. It had long arms, longer than any human should, and they hung like ropes at its sides. The only color on it was that faint blue glow inside its chest, pulsing like a weak heartbeat. I screamed. While the wind howled and the rain lashed against the roof, I heard something else. Beneath the storm's roar, there was a whisper. Too soft to make out, yet too persistent to ignore. It grew louder and louder, until I realized it was calling my name. Not once, not twice, again and again. Slow, drawn out, almost pleading. I felt a chill run through my entire body. I stood up from my chair and walked slowly to the window, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. Against my better judgment, I pulled aside the curtain. Children. What I saw outside made my knees go weak. Through the sheets of rain, far across the fields, the abandoned house was lit from inside with an intense blue glow. It wasn't flickering like before. It was blazing, bright enough to see its broken roof, its cracked windows, its old wooden door trembling under the pressure of something inside. And there, standing outside the house, was the tall shadow, but this time, it wasn't alone. There were more, 4, maybe 5. Different shapes, all glowing with that same eerie blue light. They moved slowly around the house, as if guarding it, or waiting for something to emerge from inside. I stepped back in fear, my breath shaking. Your grandfather asked, "What are you looking at?" But before I could answer, a loud crack of thunder boomed across the sky, and the lights disappeared, just like that. Gone, as if they were never there, but I knew what I saw. The next morning, villagers found strange marks near the edges of the fields. Long drag marks, as if something heavy had been pulled through the muddy ground. Footprints, but not human ones. They were too long, too narrow, and each had claw-like impressions at the ends. No one spoke about it openly, but fear spread like smoke. That night I sat awake long after everyone slept. I kept the lantern burning, the doors locked, and your mother safe beside me. Around midnight, I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. Not on the window this time. On the door. Slow, precise, intentional. I held your mother close. I whispered prayers, and then I heard something that froze my blood. A soft voice. A voice just on the other side of the door. A voice that said my name exactly the way I used to hear it as a child. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I didn't move. Not even when the doorknob turned. Slowly, quietly, as though someone was testing if it was unlocked. Your grandfather jumped awake and grabbed his stick. But the moment he did, the turning stopped. The tapping stopped. The whispering stopped. Silence. Complete silence. He rushed to the door and swung it open. No one. Nothing. Just the faint smell of wet earth and old wood. He checked outside with a lantern, but the rain had washed away any footprints. He said to me, "You are restless because of the storm. Don't worry." But in his eyes, I saw fear. Real fear. The kind of fear men don't speak about. I knew then that whatever haunted that house, whatever called my name, whatever followed me all these years, it was getting stronger. It wanted something. Something it had waited for. And it wasn't going to stop. Not anymore. Children, listen carefully now, because the next part is something I have never told anyone before. Not your mother, not your grandfather, not even Mira. Only you, because you insisted on hearing this story, and now you must know the truth. One night, the house called me again. Not from the fields, not from outside my door, not from my window. It called me from inside my home. Inside my home. Yes, children, that is where I last heard it. Sit closer. Hold each other if you must. What I'm about to tell you is not easy for me to recall, even after all these years. It was a quiet night. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels wrong. The kind that wraps around you like a fog and makes your heartbeat sound too loud in your own ears. Your mother was sleeping peacefully. Your grandfather was snoring softly. And I, foolish old me, was sitting by the dim lantern, knitting a small sweater for the winter. Everything was calm, until the lantern flickered. Once, then again. Then it went out completely. The room plunged into darkness. I waited for my eyes to adjust. I thought perhaps the oil had run out. But that wasn't it. Because in the darkness, I heard breathing. Not the soft breathing of your mother. Not the heavy breathing of your grandfather. This breathing was deeper, slower, coming from the corner of the room. I froze. For several seconds, I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't even swallow. I just listened. The breathing grew louder. And then it whispered my name. Not from outside the door. Not from the window. Not from the fields. From the dark corner of the very room I was sitting in. My blood turned to ice. I tried to call your grandfather, but no sound came out of my mouth. My throat felt tight, as if invisible fingers were wrapped around it. I clutched the chair to keep myself from collapsing. Then, slowly, the darkness in that corner began to shift, as if something was moving. Something tall, something thin, something that didn't walk, but glided. The blue glow appeared first, faint at the edges, growing brighter, like a dying ember, given breath again. The shape emerged. Long arms, long legs, a body too thin to be human, a head bent unnaturally to one side. Its entire form was made of that same ghostly blue light. And then it lifted its arm, pointed at me, and whispered my name again. That was when your mother stirred in her sleep. The figure turned its head, slowly, toward her. I don't know where the strength came from. Maybe it was a mother's instinct. Maybe it was pure terror. But I grabbed the lantern, lit it with shaking hands, and held it up high. Light flooded the room. And the figure. It vanished. Just like smoke. The lantern trembled in my grip. I woke your grandfather, and we stayed awake until sunrise. Neither of us dared to close our eyes. For days after that I felt watched, even in daylight. I sensed something following me. Not always near, but always just close enough. When I fetched water, I felt it behind me. When I cooked, I felt a coldness at my back. When I prayed, I sensed a shadow just beyond my sight. It didn't show itself again right away. Spirits. They are patient, especially the ones tied to unfinished stories. They wait for moments of weakness. Then, one afternoon, something happened that changed everything. A group of boys from the village, older boys, foolish boys, challenged each other to go inside the abandoned house. You know how children are. Curiosity mixed with pride is a dangerous thing. They went inside, all 5 of them. The villagers waited. Minutes passed. Half an hour. Then, screaming. The boys came running back, their faces pale, their clothes covered in dust and cobwebs. One of them had fainted. Another couldn't speak for the rest of the day. The only words they managed to get out were, "Something is inside." After that day, the elders gathered again. Some wanted to seal the house with chains. Some wanted to burn it. But old Abdul Baba, the wisest of them, warned them. He said, "If you burn a house that holds a spirit, the spirit will have nowhere to stay. It will wander. It will enter other homes, maybe even ours." And so, the house remained. Silent, watching, waiting. A few months passed without incident. People began to relax again. Life moved on as it always does. But children, evil does not disappear just because you look away from it. It waits. And the house had waited long enough. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Light, slow footsteps. Too soft for your grandfather. Too heavy for your mother. I thought maybe a neighbor had come to visit. I wiped my hands, stepped into the hallway. And there it was, standing right in front of me. The tall, glowing figure. Inside my home. Not in a corner. Not in a shadow. Directly in front of me. Its head tilted slowly. Like it was studying me. The blue light pulsed rhythmically inside its chest, like a heartbeat. I felt the walls closing in around me. My hands trembled so violently, I couldn't even reach for the lantern hanging on the wall. The figure stepped closer, one slow gliding movement at a time. I stepped back. It stepped forward. A cold wind blew past me, even though all the windows were closed. I felt my skin burn from the chill. My legs shook so badly that I nearly fell to the floor. Then, it whispered something new. Not my name. Not a call. It said, "Come." That one word. Soft, echoing, dripping with longing, or anger, or hunger. I still don't know. I shook my head. I whispered, "No, no, no." The figure moved closer, so close that its glow touched my face. And then, children, listen carefully. Behind that glowing shape, I saw something else. A second shadow. Smaller, hunched, crawling on all fours. Its fingers were long and thin, scraping the floor as it moved. Its head was bent unnaturally backward, as if its neck had snapped, but it still lived. It crawled toward me, closer and closer. And just as it reached my feet, the front door slammed open. Your grandfather entered with a lantern. The light filled the hallway. Both figures vanished instantly. The crawling one seemed to dissolve first, like dust scattered by wind. The tall one flickered again, then faded into nothingness, leaving behind only the smell of damp wood. Your grandfather dropped the lantern in shock. I collapsed. When I woke, the village healer was sitting beside me. She said I had fainted from fear. I told her everything. Everything. She listened silently. Then she said, "The house has chosen you. It wants you back." I asked, "Why me? What did I do?" She looked at me with deep sadness and replied, "You looked at it. You recognized it. Spirits cling to recognition. For years, I lived in fear. But something changed after your grandfather confronted it with light that night. The figures didn't appear again. The whispers stopped. The footsteps faded. The dreams slowly disappeared. The house grew quiet. Not gone. Never gone. Just quiet. Silent. Like a predator waiting in tall grass. Waiting for night. Waiting. For one last chance. Children. The abandoned house at the edge of the fields still stands there. Still glowing some nights. Still whispering. Still remembering my name. Now, listen carefully, children. This is the part I've never told anyone. Not your mother. Not your father. Only you. Only you. Because your curiosity brought you close enough to hear it. And I swear, after this, you will never look at that house the same way again. The abandoned house at the edge of the fields. It did not forget me. It cannot forget. No house that has fed on fear, that has learned a name, ever forgets. It waited, always, patiently, watching. The blue glow, the dragging sound, the whispers. They were not just memories. They were warnings, invitations, tests, I thought. I thought I had escaped it that night with your grandfather's lantern. I was wrong. Years later, I began noticing strange things again. Small things at first. Shadows moving just outside the corner of my eye. Whispers on windless nights. The faint smell of wet earth indoors. Always wet earth. Always damp wood. Then the calling started again. It started softly, at first, almost polite. A whisper, barely audible, drifting from the fields. "Grandma." I froze the first time. The second time, it was clearer. "Grandma, come." The voice was no longer soft. It was patient, persuasive, knowing. One night, I woke to the sound of scraping. Slow, deliberate. Right beneath my window. I opened my eyes. The room was dark, but the air... Oh, children, the air was alive with cold. It pressed against my skin. It breathed on my neck. And then I saw it, outside, in the moonlight, across the fields. The blue glow, brighter than I had ever seen. Moving, pulsing. And behind the glow, a figure, tall, thin, its shape like Yusuf, but stretched, distorted, unnatural. Its head tilted in a way no human head could tilt. And then I saw them. Behind it, shadows crawling, floating, clawing at the air. Hundreds of them, all waiting, all watching, all whispering my name in voices that were mine and not mine. Echoes of me calling me home. I ran. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me. I slammed the door behind me, locked it, and hid under the blanket. But children, it didn't matter. The voice was inside my head now. It knew my name. It knew my thoughts. It followed me into my dreams. Years later, even now, sometimes I feel it in the night, in the quietest moments. When the wind stops, when the house is silent. I hear it. "Grandma, come." And I know, one day, I will have to go, because houses that learn your name, houses that remember, do not give up. And the abandoned house at the edge of the fields, it is waiting, always waiting. If you ever see a blue glow flickering in a window far across the fields. If you ever hear your name whispered softly on the wind, do not turn, do not answer, because once it knows you, once it learns your name, it will never stop calling. And one night, children, one night it will come for you.